So as promised, the first mathematician on this poster of the Men of Modern Mathematics by IBM in 1966 that we're going to profile is Omar Khayyam. And he was born around 1043 AD and lived to 1123 roughly. So that's 80 years, which is quite a long lifespan for back in those days. But before we get to Omar and his contributions, let's look a little bit at what's going on in history at that time. So it's the beginning of the First Crusades in 1096. But mathematically, what you have going on is kind of the beginning of algebra, basically. And it's mainly algebra in words and there's no algebraic notation, even though there were early attempts at that by Diophantus and Brahmagupta. But it wouldn't be till later that you actually get the notation that we're used to. So there were no proofs. It was just about words and talking about the solutions to these different problems using different values that would solve the equations. And then you also have this school, going way back to the Greeks, of geometry with proof. And quite often some of these algebraic ideas that they're talking about in the solutions, they actually use geometric proofs in them. But mostly it's just words without proofs and showing you different values that solve the problem. And this actually goes back all the way to Al-Khwarizmi, who really gave birth to the phrase algebra, which came from his first, well, not his first book, but his most famous book, which was Algebra wal Muqabala. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, despite coaching from my Arabic wife. And that was published around 820 AD, which is why he isn't on this list, which really starts at 1000. He died around 850 AD. He was from Baghdad, and he really wrote that book, which covered solutions of polynomials up to a degree of 2. And that kind of brings us to Omar, who wrote 11 different treatises in science, but only one of which was dealt with algebra. And well, it had some daring conjectures that turned out to be false. His main contribution, and again, I said that his treatise didn't have a big impact on algebra, so why is he here? But his main contribution was showing solutions for cubic equations. So now you're up to a power of 3 in your polynomials. But he is most famous for poetry, and so we'll leave you with one of his poems. Here, with a loaf of bread beneath the bough, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and thou, beside me singing in the wilderness, and wilderness is paradise now. So we will leave you with that poem from Omar Khayyam, our first Men of Modern Mathematics.